Hello again, I am Casey Holdahl, he is Lamar Hurd, and this is What's the Secret presented by Biofreeze. Today, we're going to talk about Seth Curry and the way that he's been getting some of his three-pointers this season.
Well, hey, say no more. You give me a chance to watch Seth shoot, I'm all in.
Let Seth shoot.
Let Seth shoot, especially off the transition. Case, we got to rewind this just right off the bat because we got to give Seth's teammates some credit too, because Caleb Swanigan, who only knows one way to play, and that's hard, sprints down the floor, and so that causes Justin Jackson to kind of drift a little low. Justin Jackson has a foot in the paint. Seth sees that. First of all, when Seth is coming down, you better not even have 2 feet below the three-point line, much less in the paint. So this is an automatic three. Good job from Caleb, and then Dame on the weak side. The 3-on-2 break. That's what guys are doing now on fast breaks. When you shoot like Seth, when you're one of the top three-point shooters in the league, like Seth, you shoot threes on 2-on-1, 3-on-2 fast breaks. Let's rewind this as well.
Take it back.
Because what a pass from Myers. When the ball gets to Myers, not this first time, but the second time, we're going to freeze it. Because right here, Myers is a 7-footer, is reading Buddy Hield, getting inside of Zach's body to take away the drop pass. And then Seth, you see him both hands up. Shooters want the ball. They're making themselves big targets. And Myers throws the little floater pass over the top. This is great.
When you can tell too that Myers peeps where Seth is at before I think he knows what he's going to do with the ball. But it's like out of the corner of his eye, you can tell like, oh, I think he might have seen like the hand go up or just recognize, as you mentioned, he knows that those guys are soaking into him, so he knows that there's got to be someone on the outside that's going to be open.
And I know we're talking a lot about Seth throughout this video, but let's talk about another shooter really quick in Myers and the point that you're making. His feel for the game has improved so much. So being able to know where the shooter is before the catch, so you know what your options are going to be. Now you're just turning and reading the defense. That's some of the improvement he's made as well.
Absolutely. And you get a guy like Seth Curry open in a corner.
Oh, you better give him the ball.
That's cash
You better
money.
give him the ball.
He's one of those guys too. He might be like a 75% corner three-point shooter. Yeah. He has been at certain points of time this season and has been one of the most accurate in all of the NBA this season.
And he doesn't even have the ball in his hands a lot relative to guys who typically shoot that kind of percent. Catch and shoot. He likes to operate off the dribble. He does too, and get into that groove, but he can do it both ways.
Well, and he's a guy too, when he first got to Portland, I would say the first, maybe even month of the season, he was a little unsure of how he was supposed to fit in. Yeah. He talked a lot about learning where to find his shots at. And I think after a while, it just got to the point where I think from the coaching staff and his teammates are like, hey, Seth, we know you're a shooter. Just shoot it, man. Yeah. Like, don't worry about offending any of us. Yeah. Like, if you think you have a good look, take it, particularly when you're playing against Golden State.
Well, Case, I saw you wrote a terrific piece about that, his production going up. Another pass from Myers. We're going to rewind that while I quickly get this point across to you. I remember the piece you wrote about his shooting percentages, the amount of shots he was shooting from three going up in October, went up almost 10% in November, went up another 8 to 10% in December, and that speaks to what you're talking about, the comfort, knowing where he's going to get his shots from, and then as we watch his play, his teammates finding him. We're going to freeze it right there on the catch. Myers readjusts in the air on the catch, sees Steph Curry totally abandon his brother. Now, if there's anybody on the floor who should know not to leave his brother, it's Steph Curry, know not to leave Seth, but he does it, and we know what happens.
You can see the way that Steph tilts his head after that ball goes through. He's like, I probably should have recognized that because I've seen it many times. I think for Seth, you talked about kind of the catch and shoot. He's a guy too where, he's like, I want to be versatile, and do I like catch and shoot three-pointers? I do, but I want to take pull-up for three-pointers as well. I want to run off curls. Like, he's a guy who he's talked a lot about not wanting to kind of limit the way that he gets those attempts, and for Portland, I think it's important to look for ways to get him more looks as well. When you shoot as well as he does, I know they're not running a whole lot of plays for Seth, but at a certain point in time, it's like, hey, this is a valuable tool we have. We maybe need to utilize it a little bit more.
Well, you see two teammates going to him back-to-back. Nick Stauskas, the play before, baseline drive, baseline drift, and then Anthony Simons, the direct handoff to him. His teammates know when to get it to him, and he can go get it himself.
Well, and this was the overtime game that the Blazers won, and a lot of the attention got paid to Damian hitting the game winner. But Seth in the third and fourth quarter was the only reason why the Blazers were still in that game.
He lit it up, and that was a three. That was after a series of shots. He was on his own run, and that was the one that sent them to a timeout, commercial break. and eventually the win. Another big win, the home game against Boston.
And when you think about it too, when you have when your dad is a legendary shooter and your brother is maybe considered maybe one of the best shooters of all time. Yeah. I imagine that for Seth, it's it can be maybe a bit difficult sometimes because that you're a good player and you're always maybe not living in that shadow, but at least always being compared to those guys. And I think for players in particular, they want to be judged on their own merits. And I think Seth has got he's shown throughout his career that he's a player as well, and he's a guy who you have to deal with offensively because he's a guy that can go out and get buckets, particularly from three, which in today's NBA is about as important as it is.
Go look at the percentages. He's at the top of the charts.
Top.